today's project we're going to be learning how to make these wonderful stackable ladder bracelets when there's more than one row involved. It's a very easy project, really fun, and doesn't take too much time as we'll be working with 6/0 seed beads, Ceylon, and nice 2mm Greek leather. And all of the supplies and materials that you see today can be found on our website, beadshop.com, and we've paletted 3 patterns for you to help you get started. So the materials we'll be using today for the project is a deep dish design tray. I've got an insert, a thread burner, GS Hypo cement, some thread snips. We'll definitely need a tape measure. I like to use this handy tape that we can actually put down straight on the board, because as you're working it's nice to create lengths that are all about the same. And then I've got 5 to 6 tubes of 6/0 seed beads in different finishes and different colors. We're going to be incorporating all of those. I've got Superlon 18 or Ceylon. Both of them are relatively the same product, they just offer slightly different colors. We have 2mm Greek leather. I've also used 1.5mm Greek leather as well, and 1.0mm leather. We're going to use a miscellaneous piece of rat tail that's going to help us strap it to the board, a button that will accommodate our leather, and beeswax. So to get started, I am going to make a band that wraps around my wrist once, but is a nice kind of wide cuff, just like this one here. And so I'm going to cut a piece of leather that's about 2 feet in length. We're going to half that over. And now I'm going to slide my button on. Bring it up towards the middle, just like so. I'm going to tie just a simple overhand knot at the end of the 2 tails here. It's going to be temporary. And now I'm going to strap this down to my board using my rat tail. I'm going to feed the rat tail through the leather. Bring it under the board, bring one of the tails around, just like so. And we're just going to secure it by tying it down with like a double knot. The nice thing about rat tail is it's easy to unknot, so we can still take this off the board relatively easily. Okay. Second step, I'm going to take my Superlon, I'm using Superlon 18 because it matches this 2mm Greek leather pretty nicely, but I could also use Ceylon. And I'm going to cut a pretty long length. I'm going to start with 2 yards, maybe even 3. 3 yards will definitely be enough. I don't want to cut too much because it's a lot of string you're going to be working with. I'm going to take that length of Superlon 18 or Ceylon and I'm going to half it, bringing the 2 tails together at the end. So I've oriented my board so you can see this a little bit better, and we've got the button kind of pushed all the way up here so I can really show you how to get this project started. I've taken my Superlon 18, I've folded it in half, and now I'm going to bring it underneath my leather at the middle point. And to start this, it's going to be slightly different. What we're going to do is I'm going to do kind of a little bit of what we call a herringbone weave, where I'm going to bring the left side over the left piece of leather here, underneath the legs, under the right side. Move that over. Then I'm going to take the right side of this Superlon, bring it over the right piece of leather under the left side, so they kind of crisscross like that. I'm going to do that just a few more times. So I'm going to bring my left side over, under, right side over, and under. Take my two tails, kind of tighten and push this up towards the end. We're going to be silk wrapping over this, so it doesn't really need to be too perfect. It just needs to look and feel secure. So then after that, I'm going to do that one more time. Bring the left over, under, and through. The right over, under, and through. And I think 3 is enough. So then what I'm going to do is just do a little overhand knot with these two tails. You'll see it come together right now. And that's just going to hold our Superlon onto the leather before we start wrapping our beads on. We're going to go back and silk wrap over this, so don't worry too much about how it looks. So the first step, as we're going to add beads, and I'm just going to make this band I'm going to stick with these blue colors here, so that when I add it to my stack, I'll have a complete stack. I'll have a blue, a yellow, a white, and a mixed. Before we add our first bead on, the one thing that I almost forgot to mention is how important it is at this point to wax your thread. And I like to use this beeswax here because you can kind of put the thread in between the little petals and just run your thread along the wax. And what the wax does is it not only helps to stiffen the ends when you're weaving your beads on, but it helps the Superlon 18 or the Ceylon really grip to the sides of this leather so your project's not moving around so much. It also lends to the integrity of the thread. And you can run your beeswax along the thread just a few times. Now we're ready to begin. Take both tails, separate, go underneath, up, and through the center of the legs of the leather. Like so. We're going to do that one more time. Under, up, and through. So with this cuff, I want to sort of taper. I'm going to start to taper my beads on to the width that I desire. So I'm going to start out by just weaving a single 6/0 bead on in this beautiful matte blue. So I've gone around twice, and now I'm going to add my first bead. Just thread it onto my right side here. Take my left side, going in the opposite direction. I'm going to bring it through my bead, so there are 2 threads going through my bead. I'm going to pull and tighten and adjust it to where I want it to go. We've got our first bead on. Now I'm going to wrap underneath, up and through with my cords. And instead of adding just 1 bead this time, I'm going to stack 2. I'm going to work with 2 colors here. So I took 1 matte and I'm going to take 1 shiny just to give it a little bit more textural interest. So I've threaded both onto my right side here. I'm going to take my left thread find the end, and in the opposite direction, go through those same 2 beads, pull, and tighten. At this point, I'm going to take my threads, go underneath, up and through, and now I'm going to add, you probably guessed it at this point, 3 beads. And for this particular bracelet, I think I'm going to make it about 3 wide. You can get as creative as you'd like with this process. For one of my bands, for the big colorful one, I didn't even look at the colors I was choosing. I just kind of picked them at random, which is fun and creates a spontaneous look. But you could get as patterned with it as you wish, and we'll have the patterns written out for you or described for you on our website, beadshop.com. Bringing the Ceylon through the other side here. And we can start to see our band coming together. So I'm just going to go ahead and add more, and then I'll show you how to finish and silk wrap it so it looks nice and polished. Okay, so I have added as many beads as I wish to at this time, and I took my first band that I had already made and measured it against this new one I'm creating, and I want them to be about the same size. And so I started to taper down here. I put 2 and then I put 1, and now I'm ready to finish my ladder cuff. Now the one thing you're going to want to keep in mind when you're making these is you want to make them a little bit on the snug side, because as this is leather, it'll stretch when you're wearing it. So just as long as you make them pretty snug against your wrist, it won't stretch too much, but you want to allow for a little room. So at this point, I haven't gone through yet, but what I'm going to do is bring my tails under, up and through, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that twice. Don't worry about it being loose just yet, because it will all tighten up. So as I'm pulling, I'm kind of moving these cords up a little bit. Now I'm going to cross them over each other, just like so. And I'm going to tie a simple knot, double knot. So 1, and 2. And then kind of as we did before, just to give it a little bit of a seamless finish, I'm going to go back and I'm going to go take the right side, under, up, and over the left, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, just to kind of do that herringbone weave that we did in the beginning. We're going to be silk wrapping over this, so it's just to kind of get these cords out of the way. Do that about 3 times on each side. And then I'll go ahead and tie another knot. So 1, and 2. Bringing these tails just right down here towards the middle. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and dab a little bit of hypo cement right on that knot that I just completed. And then I'm also going to dab a little bit of glue up here and let that dry while I'm working on my silk wraps. So for my silk wrap here, I chose this nice teal because I think that'll really bring out the beads that I've used. And I'm going to cut about a foot, foot and a half of Ceylon or Superlon 18. I have a short end and I have a long end on the bottom here, and I'm pinching it right up here. So I'm going to lay this loop that I've created over the area that I want to silk wrap, and I'm going to hold it with my thumb up near this bead. Now this is going to be the most tricky part, but once you practice it a few times you'll get the hang of it. So this long end is going to go up over the short end and around all of these cords. And I'm just going to kind of use my thumb to keep it in place. And we're going to be wrapping in the direction of the loop. I like to use 5 or 6 wraps at the very minimum. For this project, I'm using 8. So we're at 3, 4, 5, 6, and it's going to be kind of, just take your time with it because it's going to be covering all of these areas here. 6, 7, you can go back and kind of fix that with your nail. 8, and then the very last, I'm going to bring it through this, bring this tail here through this loop that I started with, and I'm going to pull, but before I let that go, I'm going to pull this little short tail here, and it's going to bring that down inside. This little area here is where I've pulled the short string. It's meeting right here with the long string, and before I'm going to pull that long string through this entire silk wrap, I just want to dab a little bit of hypo cement where it's going to be coming through, just for safekeeping. So I'm going to pull this little tail, kind of holding my entire silk wrap here. It'll want to get a little bit, just really take your time with it. You can go back and kind of adjust it a little bit. If you don't like the way that it looks, you can always pull the long tail out again and then re-pull the small tail. It's a little bit of a process. And kind of move your cords where you want them. But then you have a nice looking silk wrap, and then the final step is we're going to take this wonderful thread burner. I'll feed this thread through the thread burner here, through the tip. Wait till I get all the way down to where I want to make my cut. Push the lever, and it'll cauterize and cut at the same time with these synthetic cords. And I'm going to go ahead and do that to all of my stray threads here. Give it a nice seamless finish. Okay. So then if I have a few little strays like I do back here, I'm just going to push my button in and just kind of melt those away so that they're not visible. Now we're almost done. We're going to do the same exact thing to create the button loop. I'm going to take my project off the board at this point. So I'm going to be creating a second silk wrap just a little bit below the one that I just showed you, and using the same exact technique, but I'm going to make it so that it fits this button. We're going to be creating a button loop. And the nice thing is as we create the silk wrap, we can kind of move it up and down and adjust it to where we need it to be once it's on there. So, same as before, take your Ceylon or your Superlon 18, cut a foot to a foot and a half. Better to have a little more than too little. And we're going to do the same exact thing. My loop here, I'm going to hold it about where I want my button loop to be, and remember I'm going to adjust this so it doesn't need to be exactly perfect just yet. And I've got my short end on top, kind of short end on top, long end on bottom. Long end is going to cross over all of those threads, and we're going to wrap towards the left in the direction of the loop. And I realize that my hand is covering this. And we're going to do 8 wraps to mirror the other side. Finally bringing the tail through that little loop we created. Before you let go, just slightly pull the short end down here. Before we completely glue it and singe off the threads, I just want to go back and make sure that my button loop fits through, and it looks like it's going to do that just fine. Oops. So I'm just going to take my glue, dab a little tiny bit of glue here, and then finally I'm going to pull the short end so that it's going to bring those underneath, just like so. I'll cinch off the rest of my threads that I don't need, and then show you how to end the leather. And here's another thing I should probably mention just while we're at it. As you see, when we're graduating and creating these wide cuffs, the beads are going to have a tendency to want to pop out on these edges, which, you know, I really don't recommend stacking more than 7 beads at a time. Here we've gone pretty wide with 7, which is, it's a nice look, but you know, you'll see this area kind of pop up a little bit. When it's on your wrist, it won't show at all, but just be aware of that. It's not so much of an issue when you're only stacking 3 to 5 beads, but you know, I wanted that wide cuff look. So we're going to be creating this knot here just to finish the piece. And how we're going to do that is I'm going to take both of these tails here, really close to this silk wrap, bring them around and through in a simple overhand knot, but I'm going to do it real slow so that the knot comes out looking really nice. And before I tighten it too much, I'm going to take my glue, line the inside of the knot with just a few dabs. You don't need to be too zealous with it, but as I tighten it, the knot will tighten over the glue, so you won't even see the glue at all. So pull tight. And I would recommend letting that dry for an hour before you make your final cut, which will be right here. Okay, so I've completed all 3 of my bracelets, and they look wonderful together. I'll show you what they look like together in a moment. But I just wanted to mention a few things before we're done, and that was just that all 3 of these patterns, it's the same process. It's just that with this particular bracelet, this one wraps around twice. And so here I started with 1 bead and I actually tapered directly into 3. I kept my stack of 3 and then went back down to a stack of 2 for the desired length that I wanted. All the product that you see here can be purchased on beadshop.com, and we offer free shipping to the US and Canada. Alright, so that's what they look like when they're all stacked up on top of each other. We hope you enjoyed this video and thank you for watching.